Hey guys, welcome to another episode of 4PlayerAnimecast. This is actually not a regular review show. We are doing another special. Pulling out lots of content recently for the almighty YouTube algorithm. So, for those of you who are not in the know, although it's been pretty big, so you probably should be in the know, a little mini series by Disney Plus has been produced called Star Wars Visions. So this is a sort of mini series, each episode being about 10 minutes to 11 minutes ish, right? Or something like that, long. And they are each obviously episodes on Star Wars, uh, but they are being produced or animated rather by various Japanese anime studios. So obviously everyone was excited, including us. And then recently it got all released again on Disney Plus, which you can view it on there. And we are here to talk about it after having watched all 9 episodes, mini episodes of it. Unfortunately, again, Toast is still not here with us today on this lovely day of 9th October 2021. But with me are some of my usual compatriots, Near
Hello.
and Dark.
Hi.
Again, it is a little bit unfortunate. Toast still has some, real life issues. Or not real life issues necessarily, but real life stuff he needs to just smooth out. So please bear with it for now. But yeah, Star Wars Vision is very interesting. Again, crossover between the West in terms of publishing and East. I mean, it's not like okay, so the on paper it's not new, right? The idea isn't new where it's like the West, Hollywood, some publishing studio, production studio, right? Pays um Japanese people either for an idea or they take an idea and do a live action, or it's like the general like idea is Eastern Japanese, but then they make it into Western. And this time, I guess it is an inverse. Like they take a Western idea and then make it in Japanese. But the basic like anime stuff is all being done on the Eastern end by various studios. Most of them not like the super famous ones you necessarily know, but still ones that have done
Um,
pretty decent work. So
Trigger?
sorry. So let me list them. It is Kamikaze Doga, Studio Colorido, Studio Trigger, uh, Kinema Citrus, who Rising of the Shield Hero and some other stuff, right? Production IG, obviously Studio Trigger and Production IG, you guys know. Science Saru, which is actually a very interesting company who did a bunch of different work. They helped a lot with stuff, Western stuff like what is it, Adventure Time, I believe, Adventure Time stuff, and I believe, it is led by
It's
a Korean person and a Japanese person. So it's like a weird hybrid of like there's like Western influences and there's like
Science Saru is basically like Masaki Yuasa's studio. It,
yeah.
essentially, you know.
Okay.
Um,
Okay.
but yeah, they've done a bunch of stuff.
Yeah, they've done a bunch of stuff and they've had a lot of Western collaborations before as well. And then Ghetto Studios. So these five, right? 6 studios have made 9 different mini episodes. And it is available both, English and Japanese dubs, and obviously subs as well. So yeah, a lot of money being poured into this. A lot of different studios getting money from LucasArts, from Disney, to make this stuff. And yeah, that's a brief overview of what the series is about. And I want to kind of, how do I say this? I want to kind of be a little bit more surgical in our review. So, because I know like once we review this like monolith of like Star Wars and Japan and blah blah blah, it's gonna take forever. So what I want to go over first is how do you think Japan did these very okay. So I guess let's start with the audio visuals. Actually, what do you think about the audio visuals, and how do you think the studios approach them? Compared to what they regularly do. Do you think this quality was better, worse? Was it because of COVID? Was it because of other stuff? How would you compare doing this to maybe what you've seen in previous stuff, whether it's again on the anime side or whether it's on the Star Wars like Western animated stuff side. And let's leave subs dub stuff out of this. Let's just purely focus on like audio visual, like BGM, animation. Okay. So first off, Nier, I guess. Do you want to start or somebody start?
Um, I mean, in terms of visuals, uh, I would say as a whole, a lot of
Mm,
these, uh, in my opinion, they're like basically movie quality. I think
okay.
they're stunning. For a
Yeah, pretty
lot of
good.
them, I think. Um, what was it? Episode two,
Uh,
the Studio
Tatooine Rhapsody.
Colorido
Yeah.
episode. I think it didn't really it didn't really go as hard as some of the other ones.
It could
Um,
be still be sold as like a Pixar movie though, if they
yeah,
tried. You
yeah.
know
I
what I
mean,
mean? Yeah.
it looked good.
Yeah.
But like the Science Saru episodes
Yes.
were stunning. Like
The
they were
first one, the one
gorgeous.
with the drone,
The
the robot,
robot,
sorry, that
yeah,
was really good. That reminded me
yeah,
of I thought when it first came out or when I first saw it, I was like, who's making this? Because I thought it was Tezuka Productions because it looked like
yeah. It's
Adam the
very
Boy, right?
Astro Boy. Yeah,
Yeah, it is so Astro Boy. I was like, is this Tezuka Productions? What's
yeah.
going on? Yeah.
And like the music in the Science Saru episodes are like they're also like I mean they're basically nothing that you would expect from a
The
Star Wars
music.
series, right? Yeah,
Yeah, yeah, it's very, very interesting because like sorry for interrupting like continually, but it's like I'll get into this a little bit more later after you're done. But it's like they're inserting a Japanese theme into it, so that it's like like oh my god, it's so like Japanese, so it like sets like this Japanese mood, and then you also kind of slowly realize on the side a lot of what Star Wars does in terms of like its kind of themes, in terms of its battle scenes and stuff like that, does still fit what Japanese people kind of like, you know what I mean? In terms of like the
yeah,
lone samurai and the standing still and then boom, suddenly like saber stuff. You know what I mean?
yeah,
So sorry, keep going.
yeah. Yeah. I don't know. I thought it was really really good.
Mhm,
A lot of episodes. Obviously there's quite a bit of fighting in this series.
mhm.
It seems pretty apparent that pretty much every studio was like, well, we got to have a lightsaber fight, right? Like it's got to happen.
Well, I
Um,
think that part is like I mean obviously because lightsaber is just like easy money, right? It's
yeah,
like having a it's like not having a transformation scene in a mecha slash magical girl thing. You gotta do it. You gotta do,
yeah,
but it's also like I think also lightsabers for Japanese kind of people in terms of like thinking about Star Wars, it's a lighthouse in the middle of a storm. It's an easy thing to kind of go to. You know what I mean?
yeah,
Because I don't want to say it's a crutch, but it's like how Japanese or how Americans when they want to kind of just describe I don't know like Japanese culture or whatever. It's like kimono, katana, just do something like sakura tree, right?
yeah,
But it's like the same thing I think with
yeah.
Japanese people in Star Wars.
But yeah, for me overall, like the audio visuals are like they're really really fucking good. Like
Mhm,
they're some of the cream of the crop, some of the best stuff. Like these studios are able to put out
mhm.
some of the best stuff that I've seen. That like these studios have put out. So yeah, it's obvious that like when the studios got this project, like
They got a lot of money.
it was a big deal, you know.
They got a lot of money.
Yeah,
Art, do you wanna chip in before I start ranting or what's going on?
Yeah, I mean, so what I thought was really just interesting about it was, yeah, how different some of the ways like some of them went, and also how sort of like intrinsic to the series. Some of the stories are too. I think just as an establishing thing as well to let people know would be, as far as I understand, Star Wars is also a pretty, at least for the people who really enjoy it in um like Asian countries, including like China and Japan, it's a very sort of like beloved series anyway.
It's interesting because it's like in
It's very similar to how it's treated in the West, where I remember I was watching
well,
a
yeah.
big documentary where, basically like the documentary was like how fucked up people got over the prequels. And like how yeah, like how upset people were. And I know
Yeah.
there were people, I think it was China and Japan. There was like they were also going through like fan groups in there. And it was like, like, oh, how did you feel with it? And it was like these people were like, we were real fucking mad. Like,
Yeah. What's
so
interesting? What's
y-
interesting is that I think in the West, it's just like a mainstream. It is almost a backbone of popular culture. Star Wars is right, but then in the West, I think in China, in Japan, and Korea, it's it's a little bit more of a cult hit. I don't want to say cult hit because it's like people still know what Star Wars is, but it's a little bit more niche than the whole like widespread influences in the West. But it's
yeah.
still like there. Like people like it's not like everybody watches Star Wars or everybody is, but it's like people kind of still know. So it's
Yeah,
like
and it's
yeah,
appreciated in a very similar manner.
yeah.
So I think going in with like that sort of idea was uh, kind of key to that. I think overall, I
Mm.
mean overall I really liked it. I think some did a little bit better than others, whether it be through experimenting with like different styles or just telling a very short, succinct story.
Mm.
Um, I think what I wish would have been done a little bit more with some of them was similar to something maybe we get to in a little bit, but the Tatooine Rhapsody episode with sort of like the band. I wish there had been more episodes than just like 9 so that we could have gotten into a more expanded universe
Yeah.
idea more than just pretty much every single studio is like, okay, who's the fucking Jedi in our episode and who's like the Sith. Um,
Mm.
I think there could have been there was a lot of potential with that. There would have been a lot of potential with more like bounty hunting stuff. Yeah, I think there were just like a lot more stories to tell than what we got. But
Mm.
overall, I think what we did get ultimately was pretty cool. I think sort of like the different ideas or the different takes were interesting at times. I think I didn't really have much of a problem with like more of the sort of like would you call it like lore breaking or just like world breaking like ideas that some have introduced.
Well, to be fair, Star Wars had like at this point has been stretched so many different ways that it doesn't like there's really not that much
Yeah,
that
but lightsaber mood
actually
ring,
breaks Star.
lightsabers at mood ring as mood rings
Yeah,
was a pretty
there's
big
there's
stretch.
there are
That
there
was
are there is definitely like you can bend the rules a lot in Star Wars, especially when it comes to stuff like involving the Force or what have you.
Yeah.
But there are very clear established rules, especially when it comes to stuff like lightsaber
Lightsaber.
crystals.
Oh yes,
Um,
that's true.
that you can't really just you can't just
Change the
change those
yeah,
on the
that's true.
fly. So there's definitely some lore breaking that's just like why would you write this in? Like what are you doing?
yeah, and like
But yeah.
like especially like what sort of value does this add? Like because it does even in not to go too far into the episode, but even in the episode with the lightsabers as sort of like called them mood rings because it's like the lightsaber based on your alignment with the force, the color of your lightsaber doesn't make sense on a dozen different levels. Like, what the fuck does a yellow lightsaber mean in this universe? But also just like, yeah, that's not how it works, and it doesn't really add anything to it other than like some fucking guy with a purple lightsaber being like, yeah, they influenced me, and like that's it. It's like, well, you kind of like could have just passed over this whole idea, and it would have been all right.
Right.
So
I
think there was some of that where
yeah.
there were some things introduced where it's like, well, maybe if you had like a full series to get into this, maybe you can make it compelling, but overall, like this idea on its own really doesn't do anything.
Right. So I guess going off of what Dark said, in my like I sort of didn't really mind what they did at all, and the reason being is that from the very start, like when this was just even announced, I almost completely treated this as you know when Shaft did their different like indie, like they did like a series of like indie art expo things where it's like they at an art expo, each they had like series of episodes, and each episode was done by like an indie group or something like that, right? I think that's what they did, right? And then like one of them could start working with Shaft or something
Yeah,
like that.
like different directors and stuff.
Yeah, they like mix and match. I almost treated it like that, where they were paid to make Star Wars stuff, yes, because you know Disney Plus, LucasArts, whoever was just like, hey, anime is popular, so you know they should do this, and Trigger was on the websites, the interwebs, and stuff like that. But it was also, in my opinion, a pretty obvious test of Disney and LucasArts to kind of test the waters, right? Be like, okay, well, how much will this sell, right? How many eyeballs will this attract? And if it does attract enough eyeballs, can we have a more consistent working relationship with these people? So it was almost like a venture capital like pitch deck, right? You have these short 10-minute, 20-minute like vignettes, like videos, and boom, you go. You show them what you got. So the story almost, I mean, the stories were interesting, but they kind of, in my opinion, didn't matter to me because it was just like, it was going to be one episode. It was going to be pretty like rushed anyways. But it was obvious that each studio was trying to do their best to kind of show off their audio visuals, especially the audios, like the soundtracks and like especially
Yeah.
with stuff like Science Star, like it was so obvious that they were just trying to do
Yeah,
very
Science
like
Audio
indie
went
art.
all out. Like,
Yeah. Production IG was the one that didn't try almost. They're just like, yeah,
yeah.
we just kind of do stuff.
I mean, to be fair, the Production IG episode did look very nice. Like the
yes,
fight
it looked very
sequence
nice.
in the Nine Jedi, which is the
Yes,
one that they did,
yes.
was very, very well done. But I hated that episode. I did not like that episode.
The Sith lightning was a little bit iffy, but
Yeah, I mean, just the whole like, I don't want to harp on it too much, but like it really like as a big Star Wars fan,
yes.
like you cannot fuck with lightsabers like that. Like you cannot do that. Like
Yeah,
it's just
again, I mean, I agree with you because I mean, well, I'm also a Star Wars fan, but I've also like I'm one of those people that always like the original extended universe where authors literally just did whatever they wanted, right? That was sort of the era of like old D&D, old like tabletop games where that culture of people were just like, yeah, we'll just make up crazy shit, you know what I mean? So I didn't mind it as much. But yeah, I do understand what you
yeah. I don't know, man. I'm just in a like to me, I'm in the
mhm.
headspace as a Star Wars fan where like Kyle Katarn using the Force to like just
Destroy the
obliterate
moon, yeah.
just obliterate a planet is
Yeah,
like
exactly.
sure, like go for it. Like, why not? But when you tell me that like a lightsaber changes color based on your like force alignment, it's like get out of my face. Like you are fucking stupid.
Well,
You know what I mean?
I think one of the things with that is that it's like lightsabers at their base, like even right now, are very loose with their rules. Like, there's really nothing, like no rules governing like lightsabers other than the fact that like yeah, you use a crystal, like that determines fucking color. Like you can at this point you can manipulate that crystal in fucking like 7 million different ways to change it to be whatever the hell you want. But ultimately
Well,
it's like
Yeah, but it doesn't change on the
not a
fly.
fantastical element of like the lightsaber itself is not tied to you. It is still very much a tool that is really only used, primarily by, could hypothetically be used by fucking anyone, but it's incredibly impractical unless you are force sensitive
Yeah.
because
I
of
mean,
how fucking dangerous it is. Like,
I didn't mind it as much because it's like, I mean, I agree because it's like, well, for me, the reason why I don't like the lightsaber like changes is mainly because it looks ugly and it's just like out of line. And it's
Yeah,
awkward.
it was very
But
ugly.
I mean,
yeah,
that part was really ugly. Like, not
but
even to get into that, just the alignment
yeah,
shit
yeah,
of
yeah.
like people pulling out red light. Well, I mean, yeah, like red lightsaber,
Yeah.
like, oh shit, that's a Sith. But like, for people to be like, yes, I have a red lightsaber because I'm a Sith. It's like,
Yeah, and then some
yeah,
lightsabers, like you know the one where the it was like essentially the kid and the apprentice, and the kid was voiced by Nakamura Yuichi, and then
Yeah.
they faced the Sith on the planet, and then the Sith had like really like sharp lightsabers for some reason, like it was like a katana
Yeah,
oh, are you
I
lightsaber.
talking
mean,
about the one with
The
the fucking
the elder,
the
yeah.
elder and Dan and Tajin. Yeah,
yeah? So yeah, that was the one with the
yeah.
where
You know, I
the
mean,
That
I
was
Sith,
can
for
weird.
whatever reason, has katana lightsabers.
Yeah, exactly.
I can forgive the like different shaped lightsabers because, it's very
Well, yeah, because you
obvious.
can manipulate it too, though. Like even in lore,
Yeah, I
like
mean,
you could
it is.
manipulate. Like the dark blade is technically
Yeah,
already pretty close.
it is in lore that there are different shaped lightsabers, though they are extremely rare. But like I can forgive the Japanese anime studios to have like, and
Katana lightsabers.
I harped on this when I first watched it. It's very obvious that pretty much all of the studios had like the same idea where it's like, what if the lightsaber looked like a katana? Um, and I can forgive it because like it is
I think also
technically
part
in
of it
lore.
was that Star Wars Visions, it was part of it. I mean, obviously, maybe in the future, Star Wars things made by Japanese studios will be a lot more like Western, but Western themed, but with Japanese animation studios. But it's like with Star Wars Visions, it was pretty clear that the idea was just like Disney and LucasArts were asking the Japanese studios, okay, do Star Wars, but add not even a Japanese, but Oriental ideas into
Yeah,
it,
like
because then that
make
makes
it
it cool.
really, yeah, make
Yeah,
it
I have to be specific.
really Japanese.
Yeah.
Like,
The idea is Oriental. I want people to catch yellow fever by looking at this lightsaber kind of
yeah,
Which,
shit.
to be fair, is very fitting for Star Wars.
Yeah.
and it is also very cool.
Yeah.
So it is forgivable. But
Yeah.
again, like the color changing shit, it's just like fuck off. Like get out of my
Yeah.
face.
Well, yeah, because it's like, listen, man, like, lightsabers are already real fast and loose with their fucking rules. Like, you did not need to take it to the next level.
It's like one of those meme videos where it's like people take out their lightsaber and it turns into like a trident or something like that, or it turns into like a
Yeah,
like the 20
like
like the video editing.
it's not like the Green Lantern's ring. You know what I mean?
That's true. Okay. Oh yeah. Wait. I wanted to mention also about the audiovisuals. Like, so what it kind of, again, I said this before the podcast started, but it really reminds me of the ideas aren't very together. They're not incoherent. Like I can see the idea, each of the ideas clearly, but it's very just. It's obvious that each of the ideas that the Japanese studios are thinking, and like what Star Wars is, and what kind of Disney and LucasArts kind of gave them to do, like the homework that they gave them to do, are all kind of different, and they're all kind of showing up. And then you can kind of see that, except in the ones that like Science Saru and like studios and stuff like that, where they clearly kind of set out to do their own thing, right? Like the
Mhm.
one that Studio Colorido did with the Tatooine Rhapsody and stuff like that. Like except for those like obvious things where the animation style was pretty obvious, like, oh, we're just gonna do our sort of theme thing, right? It was obvious that at least to me, a lot of the styles seem to be like the Japanese studios all said to themselves, okay, so what does animated Star Wars look like? And a lot of their references, I think, were from the Clone Wars animated series. If you guys have watched that,
Yeah,
you guys know what I'm
I have.
talking about, right?
Yeah.
It's like it seems very like Clone Wars animated series, but like less cartoony. You know what I mean? And that's a very like interesting reference to draw from. It's an obvious reference to draw from, but like I kind of found it funny that it was trying to mesh that sort of cartoony style with Japanese animation style, right? And the sort of two styles met sort of clash. I don't want to say they clash, but they differ in philosophy because a lot of Western cartoons, right, from your old Sunday morning comic strips, right, to like Calvin Hobbes, Garfield, Foxtrot. What was the circus, whatever it was, right? Dark. What was that one like the one Sunday morning star where it was just like a one coma? It's like it was like a circle and it was like circus something, right? Do you
I have
remember that?
no fucking idea
God,
what
am
you're
I the
talking about,
only old
dude.
person here? I
A
hate you all. Okay.
circle
Fucking I. What do you mean,
is a
Um,
circle?
cartoon?
the name was called like something circus or something like that, but it was anyways. That me being an old person aside, but it's, anyway, from Sunday morning strips to superhero cartoons to stuff like Batman or Clone Wars animated series, stuff like that. A lot of Western animation in this sort of aspect is designed to emphasize the fact that it's a cartoon. It's like caricaturistic, and does it emphasizes animation, right? It emphasizes what's going on, right? Where Batman is boom punching through a crowd of enemies, or bam, like Obi-Wan is doing all this and jumping here and going there, and Spider-Man is web slinging and stuff like that. It's supposed to emphasize animation, where things are happening, stuff like that. But I think with a lot of anime, the very sort of scene itself, right? Like what's happening, the entire sort of this microcosm, like standstill, right? In itself is sort of what's being animated, right? So it's like it's not necessarily that like Japanese anime is like superior or whatever it is, but they treat sort of each scene as its own sort of like thing, right? And the animation, like emphasizing the animation and stuff like that, is a little bit more secondary than the scene in itself, right? Um, so it's very interesting to see that sort of clash happen, in my opinion, between sort of an animation emphasized, a cartoony, a caricaturistic Western uh, reference that they worked on, and Japanese animation, where you can kind of see like when again in the Science Star thing with the robot and the mentor and stuff like that, when you see the mentor become a spoiler alert, but become the mentor becomes a force ghost or talks as like a force ghost to the robot or whatever, right? You can see the Japanese animation part kind of rise up, right? When they
Yeah.
do like the close-up shots of the eyes and they're like, I'm getting angry and rushing in with the lightsaber. You can see the Japanese animation part rising up. But then in a lot of the battle action scenes, right, when they're kind of just standing there and then suddenly boom, it's like a burst into the lightsaber clash and then they back off, right? A lot of that is very Western and it's very reminiscent again of the live action Star Wars series where sure there are there are extended fight scenes where they continually kind of duke it out with lightsaber, right? Like again, a lot of the battles in the prequels, for example, like Anakin Obi-Wan or Yoda Darth Sidious, stuff like that, right? But a lot of fights also in the live action Star Wars movies are very kind of bursty in nature, right? They talk a little bit, they kind of stand around, boom, they do a few kind of clashes, they back off, they talk, they boom, they clash, rinse, repeat, right? And here you might know what I'm talking about, right?
Yeah.
You kind of get that pace, and that is represented quite well in a lot of the Star Wars Visions episodes, I think. Surprisingly well. I was like, oh, okay. So they really tried to aim for that sort of like pace, like boom, back and forth, boom, back and forth. But then I also realized that sort of thing also fits a lot of what Japanese people sort of idolize in a sense about these sorts of like
It's very
samurai
samurai.
ronin.
Yeah,
Yeah,
very
exactly. It's
samurai
an EI.
duel. Like,
And then I also realized, wait a minute, Star Wars, and this is going to be like a later subject. I don't want to go on too much of a tangent right now, but Star Wars is also kind of based upon, this is comes back from when I was a small child and I was kind of reading books about Star Wars versus Star Trek and the cultural differences, right? Whereas stuff like Star Trek, which is a very like Navy, we're a team, we're all doing stuff together, different roles and stuff like that. Star Wars is very much based upon the idea of the lone hero and his sidekick, or the knight, the lone samurai. You know what I mean? It's like it's that idea, and even the whole like master and apprentice thing with the Jedi and the Sith, right? So this pacing, obviously, they might have gotten it from the initial references they might have gotten from the Star Wars movies and the animated series, but the general pacing and the idea does still fit the Japanese sort of cultural idolization of these sword fights to a T, because they already have that sort of like Roni Kenshin, like EI, sword bateau, bateau kind of stuff in their blood. It's just that now they just released it in Star Wars. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It was already in them. They just saw Star Wars and then their hands started to shake. Is how I am. So yeah, that was my idea of how the audio visuals went, at least. So a little bit of a sidetrack before we go back in here, but I know I know the subs and dubs were a little bit interesting.
Yeah.
Do either of you guys want to start on have few words to say about the subs or slash dubs, either subject or both?
Well, I've only seen snippets of the dub. Um, but what I heard was not great. Um,
Uh-huh.
so there's that. I will say I watched it in the Japanese dub with subs. Um,
The Japanese
how
dub was still. Oh, did they have? Sasyan asked in chat. Did they have the wrong closed caption? I think what Nier said was
so
Yeah.
the subtitles on the release in Disney Plus, at least I'm pretty sure those are the subtitles I got. Um, the subtitles are based on the English dub script, right? So in a few episodes, there are moments where a character will be talking in Japanese, and there will be no subtitles because they're not timed for the Japanese dub. They're timed for the English dub. Um,
God damn
which
it.
is a little strange. You would think that a company like Disney would have the time and money to have multiple subtracks, like a closed caption option for the English dub and a subtitles option for the Japanese dub, but apparently they do not. So there's
Very
that.
cool.
But in my opinion, all of
Oh,
the
by the way, can I just add another comment onto that? Apparently, what Disney did was for the Japanese subs, right? So it's subs for Japanese viewers, right? The Japanese subtitles for the Japanese viewers a retranslation of the English stuff back
So
in
they don't
Japanese.
match. So they still don't match what they're saying. Damn, that's pretty
really
cool.
good.
That's honestly really impressive that they would do that.
Disney just Thanos yeah, Thanos just snapped half their brain cells over at Disney. I think that's what happened.
Yeah. But the Japanese voice cast is very good and quite talented. So
I think I mean obviously like I have nothing really to say about the Japanese voice actors. Obviously, it's a solid. Pretty much all of the voices there are solid. But I think it's weird because I think for some the casting was slightly off. If I would have to pause, well, not for like most of them were pretty decent, but like again, for instance, the Elder, right? Episode 7 for Dan, the young like Padawan, right?
yeah,
Like the dude's like probably less than 20 years old or something like that, like in terms of like human age or
yeah,
whatever.
he
And
looks
it's
about
dumb.
17.
Yeah, and he's voiced by Nakamura Yuichi, who's just
Yeah,
like he's past the age, and like his tone, like his timbre, like in the first place, is not very suited for voicing characters like that at this point. So it's like I feel like
are you
maybe
calling him
even
old?
yeah, he needs his medication now. But yeah, I feel like even if you were to do someone old like that, but still have them voice someone young, I maybe someone like Shimonohiro or somebody like that who still has like a little bit of a lighter voice would have been okay. But I feel like again the Seiyu cast was pretty solid, but it was just maybe the casting could have changed a little bit here and there. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
But yeah.
Yeah.
Uh, yeah, and the subs. I mean, I have zero words for this. I don't know.
it is it is yeah. I don't know. I did not know about the Japanese race, but I mean, you know, multi-billion-dollar company. Whatever.
Dark, did you have any comments on it? Did you watch any or watch any of the sub stuff or
Well,
what
I mean, I
happened there?
watched it. I watched it subbed. Um, yeah. I mean, mine seemed. I watched it between yesterday and today, but mine seemed. Spoiler alert! I didn't watch it on Plus. But mine seemed a little bit better timed. There was definitely huge inconsistencies with what was being said at times.
Yeah.
Hmm.
But overall, I think it was timed a little bit better. Yeah, I don't know. I think it was definitely done a bit better. So I might have been watching a like fan redo of it. So that could have been possible.
Okay. S- says, man, one day half the half the anime twinks aren't gonna be Johnny Young Bosch anymore. Or who's the one I keep saying Itachi who in Naruto, right? Uchiha Itachi, or
Dog.
who did that? Yeah.
Let's see.
I know he's English,
Crispin
but
Freeman,
yeah,
right?
Crispin Freeman also does like the like
Gary
the other
Dog
half.
guy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But anyways, that was a little bit of a detour on
They'll all
the
turn into grandmas. Don't worry.
yeah. So that was a little bit of a rant on the dubs, but moving on. So in a little bit into the plot, and again, I don't want to go too like serious on this because again, we all know that it's just a single episode. It's more of like a pitch deck again for these studios to be like, please, LucasArts, please
Yeah.
hire
A
us
lot of
for
these
later
are
stuff.
basically
Yeah.
pilots. Like,
Yeah, exactly. So I don't want to go too deep into like, oh, did they really do all? Because obviously, like, it's one episode, 7 minutes, right? But in terms of like general themes and like the ideas of the portrayal of the studios, how do you think the studios portrayed the world of Star Wars and its themes, and limited to like what you see in the um in the episodes and like what you know of the studios? And do you think there were any differences between the portrayals of major themes in Star Wars Visions versus what you see in the canon Star Wars universe? And again, let's limit it to what we see in the episodes and like the studios, and we can talk a little bit more about sort of the general idea of Star Wars in Japan later. Okay. So I guess again, starting with Nier.
Well, like Dark said earlier, a lot of the episodes are basically just like setting up like this episode's Jedi, this is this episode's bad guy, not necessarily a Sith. I feel like Sith are slightly rarer over the course of like the entire series, but pretty much all the episodes follow the relatively same formula of this is the Jedi, this is the bad guy. The Jedi will have some sort of you know internal struggle about something, whether it be their past or dealing with like you know um what was it in the Elder, where essentially the the entire plot was like the Padawan essentially dealing with his own overconfidence, essentially his own like thirst for adventure and combat, and then
I
when he
mean, again, it
finds
was the whole like Anakin,
yeah, and then
or
he
like
meets
Obi-Wan, Anakin slash Obi-Wan versus Obi-Wan Qui-Gon Jinn kind of thing,
yeah,
or
and then
like
he meets an opponent that obviously is much more than his match, and he gets fucking owned, and then he gets humbled. Um, a lot of them are like that, where it's like Jedi
yeah.
defeats bad guy, uh, they ride off into the sunset.
But I mean, isn't that similar to? I mean, isn't that essentially also Star Wars, right? That is
Yeah,
essentially
I mean that is uh the backbone of Star Wars, right? The Jedi
yeah.
fight the bad guy, and then they triumph.
Well, I was also kind of talking about more like ultimately like in the canon Star Wars, there's not really that much reasoning or like philosophy. It's more just other than like the whole Zen Jedi gotta be all calm and
Yeah,
collected,
I mean
but
a lot
mainly
of
it's just
Star Wars.
Jedi are good guys and Sith is just
Yeah,
bad
a
guys.
lot of
It
Star
was
Wars
mostly
is
extended universe stuff.
a lot of mainline Star Wars is very simple hero's journey type stuff, right?
Yes.
Obviously the original trilogy is like almost like hero's journey crystallized. Like it is one of the purest hero's journey stories like you can get. Um,
Mhm.
so obviously, like Star Wars originally doesn't necessarily have like super deep themes or anything like that.
Mhm.
Um, but in terms of how like Visions sort of I guess tries to encapsulate the sort of the feel of Star Wars, right? Because obviously Star Wars at its core is a very free form thing. As we've seen with the extended universe, you can do pretty much anything with it. Um, I think most of the stories did a decent job. Um, to me, the only story that really felt like a like a true official Star Wars story
Mhm.
was The Elder, which is the one with the Jedi and the Padawan, and then they fight the old dude. That felt like the most Star Wars to me, because
Yes, I would agree.
it was just two Jedi. They were adventuring or like patrolling like
It
the
was the
Outer
most
Rim
vanilla
or
one as well,
whatever.
to be honest.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Yeah.
it was very simple.
Yeah.
Um, but Star Wars at its core is a very simple.
Yeah. Yeah.
Uh,
No, I agree with you. I agree.
it's a very simple formula.
It's
Yes.
about family.
Yeah, but but there were obviously some uh that were very very like they didn't feel like Star Wars at all, right? I feel like TOB1, which is the Astro Boy one, definitely didn't really feel like Star Wars. Um, outside of the fact that the droid, like he was dreaming of being a Jedi, right? I feel like that's really the only tie you had to Star Wars throughout most of the episode. And then of course at the
An
end,
evil
the
guy with a
lightsaber
red
battle.
lightsaber shows up.
Yeah.
So
But I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing, right? Obviously, not all of these have to be super Star Wars. They don't always have to end in the lightsaber duel, as we see with Tatooine Rhapsody. You could tell other stories and stuff too. Although personally, Tatooine Rhapsody is one of my least favorite episodes.
well, yeah. I mean,
So there's that.
it's a
Um,
bad example, but
yeah,
also it is an example of like they could have done more. I mean, to not to sidetrack too much, but to look at Tatooine Rhapsody, I mean, in isolation, conceptually, the idea of trying to tell a story of almost like I mean, I think it could be a compelling story of like a hut that wants to do something else, that
oh
like
yeah,
doesn't want to be a part of the fucking
cartel.
yeah, the cartel. Which I mean, granted, they're ugly, gross slug people, so a bit hard to tell a story about a hut. But I think in general, to tell a story like that in Star Wars is both very. I mean, I can say like it's easy to propose. It's easy to think about. Obviously, execution is everything, but it's definitely
Yeah,
not. It's not something that is unreasonable to think of.
yeah. Um, but again, I think, I don't really want to go too into like how good each episode's plot was and stuff like that. Because again, it's only one episode. They're like 10 to like 12 minutes long. There's really not a whole lot you can do with that. Um, but I did feel like, in terms of like which one was, I guess, best like pacing wise and structure wise, I feel like La Pinocho was probably the one that did the best at like
Yeah,
setting up its
it had
world
a lot of
and
stuff, but it did
also
a really
telling
good
its
pacing.
story at the same time.
Yeah, that was
Um,
a really good pacing.
yeah. And in terms of stories that I found the most interesting,
The last
I'd
one was so
say
good. The
the
last one was so
last
good.
episode
Yes,
was like,
yes,
I mean,
yes.
the fact that that was the last episode, like, was really powerful. Like
The thing
that
is,
was a really
it's
good
essentially
decision.
a riff of Oedipus Rex, right? Because it's like the whole like, prophecy into oh you fucked up kind of thing.
Yeah.
But it was still good. It was still like a
Yeah.
lot better than
It was really good.
yeah.
Um,
Fuck.
but yeah, I mean, a lot of the stories are very simple. Jedi fights bad guy, but there are a few in there that are just like they're for how short they are, they're
Mhm.
really like not the kind of thing you would really expect from Star Wars. And
Yeah.
they kind of like I feel like La Pinocho especially like it really left me like I want to see more. I want more from this. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, there's some really good ones.
Dark. What do you think? Themes that the studios and portrayed and stuff like that, and differences.
I mean, yeah, like I said, like unironically earlier, it's about family. Obviously, pretty strong theme, mostly throughout of like bonds, but um, I think a lot of them did a decent idea of. So we sort of had the mix. I suppose like there was the twins. Uh, Granted, I kind of prefer as far as like thematically. I think my favorite ones were probably the twins, TOB1, and then um what's it called? And then Lop. Now
Mhm.
Lop and Ocho is definitely my favorite. Um but as far as like why I really like the others is probably because I don't I don't know. There weren't many a lot of them were basically like sort of like the roaming Jedi getting caught up in some bullshit on whatever planet they're on.
Mhm.
Um, I definitely think the Elder was pretty good because, like, you know, it was very, like Nerid said, like very classic. Like, here's here's fucking 2 Jedi, like here's a fucking Padawan, and there you go. Like that's it. Which was
Mhm.
good. TOB1 I think was pretty cool. I kind of wish that there was more that was able to be done with it. Because it's like it ends with lightsaber duel and shit like that, and then there's like the hope-filled like thing of fulfilling his like creators sort of like legacy or like upholding it, which is fine. But I feel like that was really cool and something that I would like to see more of. But also, as was brought up, I think La Pinocho, like, I think it was just such a well-paced episode. Where,
Mhm.
like, I just really think, like, even us, like, talking
Yeah,
about it
that
doesn't do it justice to
yeah.
where
If
how,
you guys, if
like,
you guys, if you guys have to watch just one series, try at least Lop and Ocho.
yeah,
Just
because
the
it's like,
pacing is
it's like, what, I think,
perfect.
like, 20 minutes or 18 minutes or something. It was, like, one of the
Mhm.
longer ones.
Yeah.
But boy, does it, like, fucking tell a full story with, like, reasonable truncation and,
Essentially,
like,
who's the fucking director is
For
Igarashi
Law
Yuki, right?
Pinocho? Yeah,
Yeah.
Yuki
yeah.
Igarashi.
And then Sayaka is just the main like script writer and stuff like that, I guess. But Igarashi Yuki is the one mainly kind of doing directing and doing the storyboard stuff like that, right? So I just want to say Igarashi Yuki should just walk over to PA Works or wherever Okatamari is working right now and just teach her how to freaking write like things that are not
Yeah,
23 episodes or a
here's
3 hour
all the
movie.
shit. Here's all the shit you need to cut out. Like,
It's like
here's
like
here's how
how do we
you
It's
write
funny
a
because
fucking story in like the time you've
concisely
been given.
concisely yes it's like why does Okatamori only get to act properly in like 23 episode seasons plus 2 OVAs plus an OVA special like omake or a 3 hour movie while this person is over here being like yeah 1 episode I just told like an entire epic like I literally
it's
went through
funny
Homer and the Odyssey
because
the
I mean,
Iliad and the
she
his
Odyssey.
also wrote like the best episodes in fucking Flip Flappers as well. Like
Oh really? Okay.
the most like succinct and solid episodes, and it's like or
Wait, did she
directed
also
them
work on
rather, and
Aizoken?
it's like, well, there you go. Yeah,
Oh wow. Okay, yeah, she's. I'm just saying, like, come on, let's do
granted,
this.
it appears to be only like 2 episodes
Animation.
primarily, but it's
Okay.
like I mean, it was like design, key animation,
Oh, she
animation,
did do a couple of
storyboarding,
episodes for
directing.
Aizoken. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
so it wasn't the full series, but I mean, the ones she's done is very good. Like they are very much like here's an episode and you're gonna be satisfied with that one fucking episode. So
Yeah.
yeah, kind of wild, especially because it's like like I said, like some of the better episodes of Flip Flappers, some fucking like yeah, just like all around like not a ton of roles or well,
Mhm.
not a ton of like credits, but the credits that are there, you're like I don't know, I feel like more I would very much hope that she gets like more shit at this point because it's like very clearly someone who knows how to fucking like time like direct and time things
Yeah.
properly and like knows when to begin and like what the necessary details are that you can include in a story in a certain time frame.
Right. Yeah,
And
just
yeah, I just think
freaking
I
very
think
good.
La Pinocho just fucking killed it in that sense. Like definitely one that leaves you wanting more, but also left me where I was like, that was a
That was a
very
lot.
good. I mean, like, I definitely want more. Like, this could be a full series and I would love it,
Yeah.
but also very much telling what needed to be told
Hmm.
and nothing more and nothing less, which
Right.
was again, very impressive for the time that it was given.
Right,
Um,
right. But yeah, I definitely agree with the whole like Lop no Cho. Again, I like Akakiri, the last episode as well. Although
Kitty was
again,
really good.
although
Yeah.
what again, it is an Oedipus Rex riff, but I'm a sucker
Yeah,
for those kinds of things. So
it's
it is
so
what
un-
it is, right?
it's also not a story you see in Star Wars very often,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
Like
yeah.
you
I
don't.
mean, in general, you don't see it that often.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but like obviously we've had the most prominent story in Star Wars being like the fall of Anakin Skywalker, right? But
Oh,
like
yeah, that's true. Yeah.
to see like another character fall
Mhm.
in a manner like that is like, you know, Star Wars is very much about the hero triumphs over evil, right? And so it's not very often where you see a story where the hero fails, like he loses and he
Right.
falls. Um, and then it just ends, and then it's like the series is over. And it's like wow, like damn, like yeah, it
Yeah.
was really good.
I mean, especially also the idea that like not only did the hero fuck up and lose, now it's like to see like the hero then further commit to the idea of like what fucking evils will you need to do now to like see your new goal.
Yeah,
Mhm. Yeah.
Very,
Uh,
very
it's-
cool.
yeah. Um, I also want to say that again, the idea of what they again, at least what the studios thought of Star Wars was pretty interesting because you can see some subtle differences. And at least again, for me, who was a longtime Star Wars fan, I've read a lot of Star Wars comics in the library, extended universe, whatever, the original stuff, the whole, kit and caboodle. So I think Disney and LucasArts kind of told them, there's kind of like the general theme of Star Wars, like it's about a hero kind of saving the galaxy, blah, blah. And then obviously that's not a very harsh set of requirements, right? Like hero theme in space, it's not really whatever, right?
yeah,
It's not much. So it didn't really restrain them in a lot of times of making a story that was very still like Japanese anime. Like most of them was still pretty like especially like episode one, right? The duel. Yes, there was the whole like Jedi versus Sith kind of stuff, but everything else was so Japanese.
Yeah,
It was
fucking
so
it was it
though
was through and through a period
he's
piece.
not a Jedi.
yeah.
Whoa.
Even the hidden
Kind of
wilderness
also
stuff, and
weird to
it's like
pull the twist when we had already seen him draw a red fucking
yeah,
lightsaber,
the
but you know.
yeah the rogue that saves the villagers and stuff like that. Like it was very so Japanese. Like the music, the
Yeah, I
BG,
mean it was the black and
the
white, the film,
yeah
like the film
frames.
lines,
God,
like
yeah.
yeah, it was just like it was literally just like I'm gonna make a samurai. I'm gonna make a
Yeah,
samurai in the
but
film,
fuck you,
but
I'm gonna make a
there's a
samurai.
lightsaber in it. It's like
Yeah,
okay,
exactly.
go for it. Yeah,
So most of them made Japanese anime with sort of like hero-ish themes. Even like Tatooine Rhapsody was essentially it was just like an anime kind of thing, but it had like a protagonist hero, right? Um,
Actually, yeah, no, I guess the technical term for the duel would have been God, I don't know if they've made a different term for it or not yet, but was it sushi western? Thinking
yeah,
of it entirely would
oh,
absolutely be sushi western. Like,
okay.
because not only Japanese period piece, but you have like very much the roaming like fucking like cowboy, which granted, Japanese,
Mhm.
but you have like the bandits and the fucking like
Right,
band of gunslinger like fucking robot.
right, exactly.
So very much a sushi western theme. Which, I'm
And
always
I
down
also
for.
yeah, it's good because they kind of commit to it a lot of times, but into the sort of like vanilla cheesiness. But I also think there's a there's a very like I don't want to sound like elitist or anything like that, but it's like a nuance that you notice once you've read enough. Once you're like an older person and you've read more like random like Star Wars comics. But what a lot of these studios portray Star Wars and the character cast as is kind of like, we need to be good and we need to beat the bad guys, which is sort of the Star Wars philosophy, like some of the general themes. But there's an important distinction because it's like, if you've noticed, a lot of these episodes have regular sized heroes. And what I mean by that, it's like they are heroes in they're larger than life heroes in their own world. Does that make sense? Like Lop is a rabbit is small time stuff, but like the things she does, the stuff that she resolves, the stuff that she sets out to do, so on and so forth, are bigger than life, and it's like the biggest thing within that cast of characters. Does that make sense? It's like
Yeah.
she is the biggest character.
Yeah,
But
I mean, ultimately, it's like, no, for Lop, it's like, you didn't even kill the Sith.
you're right.
Like
Yeah.
you injured someone who's like kind of not even a full blown like Sith at this point, kind of like a dabbles in the dark side
Yeah,
user.
exactly.
And like that's impressive, but also nothing compared to what like fucking, any given hero in like mainline Star Wars has done.
Yeah.
Yeah, so well what I wanted to say is like the portrayal. It's like these anime studios don't make you feel that. They make you feel like each of these characters are they're in their own world. They are the heroes of their own world. Does that make
Yeah.
sense? But what's different between this and Star Wars comics and that sort of expanded universe and so on and so forth is that a lot of times like Star Wars fans joke that Star Wars is a story about a family feud, right? It's an interfamily feud between
Yeah.
Skywalkers and the Solos, right? Or because the Skywalkers are
Or
essentially
the Skywalkers
ruling the
and the
galaxy. Yeah,
Skywalkers, really.
yeah, exactly. Because the Skywalkers are just essentially ruling the galaxy from both sides, and they're kind of like
It's
duking
like
it out.
they're just it's just like this one
Yeah,
fucking family that's screwing everything up for everyone.
yeah, exactly. And what you notice in a lot of Western comics, especially in the expanded universe, is especially if you read the prologue, right? It's like the story of a clone trooper. It's like, and the prologue always starts off like, man, I was there when the Death Star blew up, and suddenly we didn't have any jobs, and we got to do this, or like it's like after executing Order 66 or whatever it is. It's like, oh, I was there when I got the order, but I just had to do it. I had to carry it out and kill all the Jedi, or one of the Jedi that were in hiding. It's like I was there when all the clones suddenly turned on us and I just had to escape. Or after the fall of the Empire, you're in the view of one of those Imperial troops, that stormtroopers that no longer had a job or was part of the remnants of the Empire. It's like we were and it's all this universe building, and their perspectives are always centered around them being the small guy that was swept around by the events of the main story. Does that make sense? It's like
Yeah.
they are the small heroes. They are
Yeah.
heroes ultimately
But
in the end of the story.
the stories in here are
Their
they're
own worlds.
local,
Yeah, but they are bigger,
but they're
right?
big.
Yeah,
They're
exactly.
grandiose, but
Yeah,
they're not like
exactly.
universe shattering.
Yeah, exactly. That's the interesting thing, because it's like in the Western comics, the perspective is always, I am a small hero. I may be a hero, but I am a small hero compared to whatever the fuck's going on with the Death Star.
Yeah,
Right?
there's
But
always like in the comics and stuff. It's always like, I
but
I mean, I'm the
Skywalkers, yeah.
protagonist, but Darth Vader's over there. You know
Yeah,
what I mean?
exactly.
Like,
Exactly.
like he's kind of a big deal. He's a bit of a bigger deal than I am. Even
Yeah,
though I'm
exactly.
the hero of the story, that's Darth Vader. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And
But with
that's a
these,
fascinating thing. Yeah.
yeah, with these, even in like the first Trigger one,
Mhm.
Twins, which is
Yeah.
probably the most grandiose episode in this series,
Mhm.
right? It is
Mhm.
completely over the top. You've got these two Force users fighting on top of these twin star destroyers,
Right.
um,
Right.
and like they're like, the one dude's going into hyperdrive on top of his ship to crash into the other one, and they're like, there's just crazy shit happening all over the place.
Right,
Which
And
exactly.
begs
then
the question: why'd they have an X-wing in their fucking Star
whatever,
Destroyer?
man.
Like,
But like,
is he just a fan?
yeah, he's just a collector.
To
But
which
like,
his sister wasn't like, wait a minute.
wait a second. But yeah, um, like it's super like over the top and grandiose. But like at the end of it, um, you have the hero, the main character, the male twin,
Yeah.
and he's just stranded on a planet. And at the end of it, he's just like, I'm sure my sister's out there somewhere. I'm gonna go look for her.
Right,
It's
right,
not
right.
like, oh, like the galaxy's at war and I need to chip in. It's just like
Yeah.
this is my story,
Yeah,
and
yeah,
I'm
exactly.
I'm going to continue it.
I think that's a fascinating contrast because it's like if you think about it, it's like the way the Western community, writing community, and the Star Wars community tries to continue its stories. It's like they try to world build from the perspective of main stories, which makes sense. But then they realize, oh wait, we're kind of limited by the main story because the main story doesn't really build a world. It's a fake world building based around all the Skywalkers. The Skywalkers do all their shit, and then maybe there's some like trivia about the world here and there. It's like how isekai are built sometimes. You know what I mean? It's like the
Yeah,
main characters are there, and then there's kind of like trivia about the world, but it's mainly just about the characters, right? But it's like that. So they were kind of limited because they're always like, yeah, I'm a stormtrooper and I'm gonna go do cool stuff and help, the little guys. But then also, as Nier said, Darth Vader. But then this idea, this line of thinking that the Japanese studios are doing about the world building is fascinating because they're just like, other than being like, by the way, this is during like the Great Jedi Purge, or like, by the way, this is after the death of Darth Bane or Revan or whoever, right? Other than those like historic mentions, they are in their own world. This is just the pure like Star Wars world. There is no Darth Vader, there is no Luke Skywalker, there is no Akal Katarn, there's no anything. It's just, kind of abstracted Jedi and Sith and good and evil kind of
yeah,
thing. It's very interesting.
Yeah, I think it was very similar to what's it called in that sense, like in a lot of ways like Mandalorian, in
Yes.
that it's just kind of like it introduces this thing, it knows what its hero is supposed to be, and then it's not going to introduce like enough of the expanded story, like the like the universe, not the expanded universe, but you know what I mean, expanded from where what it is already to
Right.
where it'll diminish who's there.
Right.
I mean, the end of Mandalorian season 2, spoiler alert aside, but like that kind of gets into it, but it doesn't really.
yeah, but it still doesn't like,
It doesn't go. It
it
doesn't go.
treats
Like
obviously
Mandalorian's not like, I need to find Luke Skywalker.
yeah, like it obviously the end of the Mandalorian treats um Luke with like the grandiosity that the character deserves, but it's still like it's still that like that scene is still between um Mando and Grogu, right? Like Luke is there and he's important, um but it's still a story between the two
Yeah,
characters,
and
right?
it's more powerful of the connection between those two, and even after the fact, you're not saying to yourself like, damn, like, oh, what's next for Luke Skywalker? It's like, what does
Yeah, like,
Mando
well,
do now? It's like,
yeah,
what is,
what's
damn,
next
what's the
for
next
what's next
job?
for our hero, like,
Yeah.
yeah. It's cool.
Yeah.
I do like how a lot of the Star Wars stories lately um are sort of trying to be their own thing, you know.
Yes.
Um Obviously Mando has the benefit of being in an era where they haven't really explored much of it, so there's not too much to be like, "Oh, but this is happening," you know. Because like obviously in the extended universe, a lot of stuff has happened in that era, but Disney has sort of thrown that to the wayside, as we all know. And so, like Mando had the benefit of not really needing to adhere to a lot of that, so it could kind of just tell its own story.
Mhm.
Um, which a lot of these are capable of doing as well, because they don't need to be set in any specific time.
Yes.
They kind of
Like they
just
can kind of say stuff, but it doesn't really.
yeah,
They
like
are
they
all
can
very like
say
isolated. Yeah.
yeah, they can say like, oh, this is like after the Clone War, right? Because
Honestly, I didn't even know half of their lore. I was just like, whatever. Okay, I'm
yeah,
Yeah, I
I
mean,
mean, like
shit. Fucking like
there was the
the
one,
what was it, the
um,
bride or
yeah, the
whatever?
bride one, where it's like,
Like the
oh,
bride, the village bride, like that could have taken place after the sequel trilogy. Like
yeah.
it
yeah,
literally doesn't matter. Like
it could have taken place at any point because like, it's
there
like,
could be a
oh,
roaming Jedi at any fucking point
yeah,
in time.
like
Yes.
the story is just a roaming Jedi is like visiting this planet where um, they may or may not have lost like their master way back in the Clone Wars, right?
Mhm.
And then there's this band of like bandits that have like essentially retooled this abandoned army of battle droids to like do their bidding. And like that's all you need, right? Like that's literally all you need to date this to be like it's post Clone Wars, right?
Right.
Or it could be during the Clone Wars. We don't know. Like it could just be some battalion of battle droids that got ditched because they just decided to abandon the planet. You um, but like it doesn't need to be like, oh, this roaming Jedi is on this planet, and also, like in like 10 like star systems over, Obi-Wan is fighting General Grievous right now. It's like,
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
don't
Exactly.
need to know that,
It's
right?
Yeah.
very second.
It's just the story on that planet here and now.
Yeah. That's
Which is, I think,
they are their own world. It's very good.
yeah, it's very, very. I mean, it helps a lot when you're
It adds
making
value. Yeah.
yeah, when you're making stories within the Star Wars universe, you want them to be stories on their own, right?
Right.
You don't want them to necessarily like nothing. Not everything needs to tie back to Anakin and Obi-Wan and Luke. Like
Yeah.
you know, it's a big fucking galaxy, and
I was a trooper
Yeah,
in a Death
shocking,
Star
shocking.
here.
You in fact do not need to pick up Anakin's lightsaber. You do not need the Emperor does not need to somehow return.
yeah,
You know how
Real
many
shocking revelations about Star Wars being had.
do you guys realize like exactly how many Star Wars comics that I've seen that start with like I was an Imperial trooper stationed on X planet when I heard the news of the Empire like collapsing or whatever it
yeah.
is. Like
I mean, like
so
there's
many
so
comics that
many.
start
There's that
with.
comic. There's that one comic that I really liked where it was about the clone trooper that
Mhm.
joined like the Empire,
Yeah, yeah.
because
That's
he
like
was like
50 comics.
yeah,
Yeah.
but he was like because like Darth Vader like saved him the one time,
Oh yeah,
right?
no.
You
I've
know the
seen
one I'm
that one.
talking
Yeah.
about?
Yeah, yes,
He
yes,
he
yes.
saves him and he becomes a humongous like Darth Vader simp, right? Like
Yeah, yeah.
he's super dedicated to like, serving the Empire in hopes of being like under like directly under Darth Vader. Like he wants to
Right.
serve like in like Darth Vader's like personal like
Half of
vanguard or
these
whatever.
half of these like stormtrooper things like comics are like either they're like them becoming disillusioned or it's like them having this like one episode with Darth Vader where Darth Vader is mainly just like a strict leader more than like,
Yeah.
a tyrant that kills
Yeah, but then
like
like
many people. Yeah.
the way that comic ends is like
Yeah.
he gets Darth Vader's attention, right? And
Mhm.
he starts serving directly under Darth Vader just like he wanted.
Mhm.
But then like he gets this mission to wipe out this like this colony of like uh rebels, right?
Right.
And he gets there and it's literally all just women and children. And they're
Mhm.
all sick and dying. And he's like, I don't want to do this, right?
Mhm.
And then fucking Darth Vader comes in and just slaughters them all. And he's like, wait a minute, this is my hero? Like, what the fuck? And then,
Right.
and I mean, it's a good story, but like,
Yeah.
pretty much all the Star Wars comics are like, wait a minute, Darth Vader's doing something? Whoa. It's like,
Yeah, like
could
fucking
you could just
like
you
Session
could
said,
just
just like when he was little. Like,
you could just make a Darth Vader comic, which there are a lot of, by the
Yes.
way.
A
Um,
lot.
But you don't always have to tie in your you don't always have to have Darth Vader be like this constant presence in like the Stormtrooper comic.
Yes,
It could just
yes,
be about
absolutely.
the Stormtrooper's life and him
Mhm.
serving, you know, in the Empire. Maybe he's in like this fucking shitty position that he doesn't like and he can't like provide for his family or something, Just
Mhm.
like these small stories in the Star Wars universe that
It's
Yeah,
it
yeah.
has
they
value,
basically, to loop back to Mandalorian, that was again spoiler for season 2. That was like what's his name's story in it? Bill Burr. Like his character was that like he left after experiencing like going through an order that I believe it was like they basically glassed a planet.
Mhm.
And he was just like, this was the least heroic thing or like justifiable thing we could have ever done in this situation. And it was
Right.
given to me by a leader who I don't even think is competent anymore. Like, no real mention of anything else beyond that as far as like the Empire goes. It
Right.
was
Yeah.
just like my commanding officer in the Empire ordered this. Regretfully, like they went through with it, even though I disagreed with it, and I live with that like to this day. And
It's
yeah, like it doesn't need to be more than that.
Yeah, like not everything needs to be in the shadow of Darth Vader or whatever. You can have
bro, but I
stories.
was on the Death Star, man. I
Oh,
have to
then
mention that in the prologue.
yeah, like I was on the Death Star when it exploded. What?
You
Wait,
weren't.
wait a minute.
You sure as shit were not, because you wouldn't be. Well, actually, to be fair, somehow the Emperor has returned. Like
So
That is
the
he
Emperor
true.
has returned.
he fucking died and then blew up. So and then he's back. So really, who's to say a stormtrooper couldn't come back?
But
Yeah.
yeah. I don't know. I'm not
Yeah.
too sure where like I'm going with this, but like it's just really refreshing to see
Yeah.
the recent direction that a lot of Star Wars stories have taken, especially with the
Independent
smaller
direction.
stuff.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
there's. I mean, I think there's a way to sense sparingly. Um, but a lot of the times it is the mistake of like introducing characters through those events. You know,
Mhm.
again, like I'm gonna probably like keep talking about fucking Mando season 2, but even Gideon, like Luke shows up and you can see instantly he is like fucking done with his entire plan. He's like basically just throws in the towel, like never mind, like I
Yeah.
am
Like
fucked. Like there is
like
no.
plan's over.
Yeah, like he tries killing himself over fucking facing like Luke. And it's like, yeah, like there are ways to do it like that more so than like introducing Gideon through like fucking, being under a command of the Empire through someone from the original fucking trilogy being like, yeah, I witnessed the atrocities that Luke has committed. It's like, we already know all that shit. Like, if you're eventually going to show something like that, sure. But, like,
Mhm.
we don't need to know that outright. Like, we know. We know
Right.
that the Death Star being destroyed wasn't a good time for the Empire. We're aware.
Right. It's very yeah. Um yeah, so on this note, just to expand it a little bit more, do you guys like what do you guys think about how sort of Star Wars is in Japan? We kind of touched upon it at the beginning part of the podcast where we talk about kind of Dark mentioned about how sort of it was a hit and obviously people over there were very much affected by the prequels being not very good as not very coherent as well, right? Um but again, at least in China, Japan, and Korea, there was always stuff like mechas over I mean, mechas or sort of Gundam-ish kind of anime, not just in Japan, but again in China and Korea as well. That kind of, I think, their own brand of anime and like whatever was going on, like those fantasy fantastical stuff, was also preventing Star Wars from making as much of a dent at the time. But then it became again like a more of a big hit as time went on, and then the Star Wars movies, prequels, and obviously the sequels, I think had the biggest impact, became more and more popular um, as time went on. But again, it's interesting because at least from my perspective, a lot of the way that Star Wars is received and portrayed is kind of the same as how I perceive KFC is received and portrayed in Japan, where it's like it's very like happy and innocent and like it's chicken, but it's fried, yay, like sandwiches and stuff like that. Whereas in the US and so on, it's just like these oily bombs of doom. Like, why are you even like living? Like, you general piece of shit. You know what I mean? It's like it's stuff like that. Nobody's like,
Well, there's
wow,
something
chicken
to say
sandwich.
about the general production quality, to say the least,
Yeah,
of
yeah, yeah, yeah.
American KFC versus other areas.
Yeah.
Just
But
American
even
fast food, really, compared to any other
yeah,
fucking country.
with Star Wars, there's always been stuff like at least for one, there's always been stuff like Star Trek or Doctor Who or stuff like that where because they have those other sort of competing visions, Star Wars is obviously very popular, but it's always been seen as sort of the um, vanilla simpleton version of the mainstream science fiction idea. You know what I mean? Like the series compared again to stuff like Star Trek, stuff like Doctor Who. Although that doesn't necessarily mean that they're so much better or whatever, right? But that's sort of how the conception or perception has been, as well as sort of again this development around kind of like uh, the Skywalker solo family feud and kind of running around, and it's always kind of focused on either somebody related to the Skywalkers and Solos becoming the apprentice and honing their force power really, really well, or somebody being under Darth Vader, or somebody magically running, a junk ship very well with a friendly, sidekick co-pilot that doesn't speak a regular language, and then somebody makes reference to the Millennium Falcon. You know what I mean? Like this
Yeah,
whole kind
yeah.
of like riffing off the main story over and over again. And we're all just kind of like, all right, can we all right, enough Luke Skywalker stories.
I
And
Well,
mean, to be
mm,
fair,
yes.
Star Wars Visions does have a lot of riffing uh, from the original series, right? I think
Yes.
in
Yes.
7 out of the 9 episodes, they say,
Mhm.
I have a bad feeling about this, right? There's just a lot of
I
stuff,
mean, what
right?
was it?
Just
The
Yeah.
Elder? Wasn't it the Elder where he just straight up says, "I feel disturbance in the forest"? Like,
yeah,
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
well,
there's a lot of stuff that was just like,
Well, what I was going with that, it was just like the central like ideas and the tone of the characters though is always very like with the Star Wars visions and like Star Wars in Japan, I think in general is very much just like it's been abstracted. You know what I mean? Like all of the specific like goo and like trivia about the Skywalkers and the whatever like trivia about. I think that's also part of why the lightsaber stuff is so funky, right? In Star Wars Visions, like all the trivia about like how the lightsaber should be, the lightsaber battle form. You know how it's like lightsaber fencing had like different forms, like
yeah,
five, six different forms, and like lightsaber fencing forms. Who can be Jedi, Sith, and their history and the timeline, and you know, pre like Confederate era, the Republic era, and then the ancient Sith era, and then the Purge, and the timeline. Like all of this has been kind of washed away And sort of what remains, I think, in Star Wars Japan is very much just like good guys versus bad guys, and the good guys carry the green and blue lightsabers, and the bad guys carry the red lightsaber. And it's very, very, very abstract in a sense. I'm not saying that's bad. I'm saying I think all of that, all the sort of gooey trivia that's sometimes limiting in the Western sort of idea of the canon of how the universe should be is kind of gone in these stories. And it's always just like even in Star Wars in Japan as a whole, it's very just like good guys. Star Wars is just about kind of good guys defeating the bad guys. And the Western fan would say yes, but also kind of no, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's sort of what I was trying to get at. It's very abstracted in Japan.
Yeah, for sure.
But yeah, that was
Yeah,
just me kind of.
I think that. I mean, I think one of the reasons why that happens, as opposed to you would look at like Star Trek, Doctor Who, something like that. I don't know exactly how they're received in like overseas those series, but
They're much less popular. Like
Well,
they're 10.
well, I mean, not
I
even
would-
just less popular,
Yeah.
just in the sense of like whether it be sanitized or just not even just
Ah, yeah,
sanitized,
yeah.
more of like taking a very broad take of it.
Right.
I mean, certainly, I think the sort of like not to like retake it but I think it is like we were talking earlier, those like Orientalism
Yes.
like themes in it probably were what really did boost it, whether it be like the roaming samurai, like Jedi, sort of like what would you call it, like Zen Buddhism like esque shit,
Right.
the fact that fucking Darth Vader is a shogun with his, even like through like visually, like these are very like oriental styles in that sense. You might ask yourself, is George Lucas a racist? And the answer is yeah.
Yes.
The answer is
He is.
Whether intentionally or not, absolutely. Like 100,000%. But I think there is something to be said when you take something like that and for an American audience you might see like, which I mean I never particularly agreed with the take on Darth Vader and whatnot, of like that is sort of like an otherism idea of like, oh yeah, the big bad shogun with fucking Asian armor, like isn't he evil? It's like, well,
That's a
and
stretch.
yeah, it's
I
like,
think
well,
it
it's
would.
more
Darth Vader
about
was
the
straight
fact
up
that
Nazi.
he's
It
fucking
was just straight up Nazi.
yeah, it's more of the fact that
Yeah.
he's wearing Nazi colors and fucking
Yeah. Like the mask
but,
is literally Nazi
like the
symbol.
helmet's iconic, but
Yeah.
the fucking the mask itself and the color scheme is kind of a
I
little
mean,
bit
the
what does it.
entire imperial aesthetic is literally just Nazi. Like,
Yeah, it's Nazi references. Yeah.
Yeah, so I would say though, in that sense, like those themes that people would point out as like the otherism probably would also act in a way of sort of like bridging, in a sense
Right.
of like people would see these things and they'd be familiar with it. Now there,
Right.
like we were saying earlier, I would say that there are very many similarities between Star Wars and like any given period piece for Japan.
Mhm.
Even in the sense like you had brought up with the sort of like sanitizing and stuff like that, where it's like, I see a period piece where a fucking like a roaming samurai kills like fucking 100 people, and it's like, well, don't really think about it. Like, don't really think about the fact that he just slaughtered like tons of people, morally, like, bad people or not, still
Mhm.
did kill quite a lot. But don't really think about it.
Right.
So I think there is a lot to that. I think there's a lot to sort of like the Orientalism.
Yeah.
But yeah, I would say that's probably sort of like explanation of, sort of like how it became more of a staple.
Right.
And I guess that is why they could play more fast and loose with certain things. I would imagine the extended universe didn't really take off very much in Japan, I would assume. So it's like fucking deletion kind of really didn't affect very much. Because I would argue that although the extended universe is mostly gone, but I would say its existence kind of did still, even
Effect.
now, solidify a lot of like the canon and elements of it.
Yes,
Like it
Well,
very much did
yeah, because
burn it into people's heads of like this is how it works.
yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, most people making Star Wars stories, properties, whatever, they're Star Wars fan, right?
Mm.
And so, regardless of whether Disney has tossed aside the extended universe and made it legacy canon, like for most of the people writing these stories, like the legacy canon is still the canon, right? Like a lot of the comics and the novels and games, you know, a lot of the lore in those are still like that's just it's part of the universe, right? So you'll have stuff like in the Mandalorian, like Dave Filoni is obviously a humongous fucking Star Wars nerd. I mean, he directed basically the entirety of the animated Clone Wars series, 3D one.
Yep. Yep.
So, like, he's a massive fucking Star Wars nerd. And, he's such a Star Wars nerd that he literally pitched the idea of putting fucking Darth Revan into the Clone Wars in a scene. And George Lucas was like, I think that's not a good idea because that's like a very dangerous door to open. You know what I mean?
Right.
Which
Right.
is a surprisingly smart and reserved decision by George Lucas.
By the man who made midi-chlorians a
Yeah.
thing.
By the man
Um,
who fucking tried to pair up who was it? Was it like was it fuck, what's her name? The Twi'lek. Wow, shit, why can't I remember her name?
Oh, the one with the dual lightsabers? Are you talking about? No
Yeah,
or no?
what's her fucking name? Like
Ayla Secura.
Yeah, Ayla Secura.
yeah, and who's the other? Who's the one that was in fucking Mandalorian?
So,
Ahsoka?
Yeah. Wasn't it like was it them or who was it where George Lucas was like literally people were like in his office and he held up like two figures and he was like they're friends and they're like George.
I
They're like,
remember that.
they're like George. These two characters lived thousands of years apart.
Yeah.
He's just like, I don't care.
Yeah,
Like,
I remember that story.
okay.
I want to say that story's not true, but also like it's George Lucas, so it's probably true. But yeah, like
I forget what I saw that in, but it was like,
yeah,
yeah, they're
but like
friends like George. They're thousands of years apart.
yeah, they never knew each other, George. But
yeah.
like most of the people writing these stories, like they love Star Wars.
Right.
And regardless of whether Disney, and I forget who the chick's name is at the head of Lucasfilm right now, but like the rumor is, uh, that her and pretty much literally everybody else, working in Lucasfilm right now, are obviously creatively at odds, as you can see with the direction of stuff like The Mandalorian and The Bad Batch, and the direction of the new trilogy. Um, so, most of the people right now writing new Star Wars stories are huge Star Wars fans. So, regardless of like whether the slate has been wiped clean or not, in terms of a lot of lore, a lot of that old stuff is going to creep its way in regardless.
Yeah, a lot of the
So,
old guard is still kind of in there.
yeah.
Yeah.
Oh,
Okay.
Sessian had said in chat, Darth Talon and Darth Maul, which sounds
Yeah,
correct
yeah, yeah,
actually.
yeah, yeah,
I
yeah,
might be
yeah.
thinking that, yeah.
Darth Talon
Friends.
is the pretty sure Darth Talon's the red Twi'lek chick, like the black and red one, and
Yeah.
she was alive during like the Old Republic era, and obviously Darth Maul was not.
During the
So
Clone Wars era. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, so it's like George,
God
they
fucking
they
damn it,
could not
George!
have possibly ever known
George,
each other.
please.
but they're both red.
Yeah, they're both red and they use red lightsabers, so you know.
Anyway, they all. Anyways, both their faces are colored. But yeah, anyways.
Yeah, I mean, George Lucas in his office. Well, what do you mean? They're red. They look the same. Like, okay, George. All
Hey
right.
George, it's nap time.
Anyways, just one last thing before we wrap it up. So, what do you guys think about again the timeline in terms of or this place in history, right? In terms of crossovers slash collaborations with Eastern studios and Western sort of publishers and like Hollywood companies and stuff like you know what I mean? And people in the West that want to throw money at Eastern studios and Eastern ideas or whatever, right? And Eastern studios or idea people with like the licensing rights and ideas that kind of want to get more money than what they're making right now, right? Which is kind of again what we were talking about recently with the anime industry, right? Not being able to the studios not being able to probably make enough money for this sort of stuff. I mean, their models probably don't change that much, if at all, in terms of this, but obviously they're getting a little bit more money from Star Wars
Probably.
and like from the general like Western culture, like paying them, than the standard sort of anime industry grind, right? So, what are your thoughts on this sort of most recent one, which is obviously sort of almost an inversion, right? Where the Western people have an idea and then they're like, "Hey, Eastern studios make stuff." You know what I mean? So, what do you guys think?
Um, well, I mean, it's not the first time we've seen this, right? We saw it before with I mean, the first time I remember we seeing it was, of course, the Animatrix, right? Um,
Please stop.
Yes.
hey man, I liked
It's
like one of those things.
you
I don't
can't
even remember
say
how
it
long
wasn't
they
one
were.
of the earliest ones.
It is the
Can't say
first
that.
one I remember. Um, but then we've also got the Halo one, right? I
Yes,
forget what it was
sir.
called. Um,
Halo Legends.
I'm just shaking my
yeah,
head, to be honest.
yeah. And so obviously in are the prior examples that I listed, the uh product we got was a little bit mixed, I would say. Um,
Well, I think the product we got was also very much kind of just using the studios more as a way to deliver the medium than
yeah,
essentially give them
they
something.
weren't.
It was more of
Yeah, they
just like,
weren't really. It wasn't really a
you
scenario
fucking better
where.
animate this shit. We'll
Yeah,
see, and
it wasn't really a
here's your
scenario
story.
where they give the studio the IP and say, do something with it. And it was more of, we want you to animate this. Um, so I think Star Wars Visions is a little bit more unique in that regard. And obviously, you know, what we got was very good. Um, I think it will be interesting if more like big like IPs and stuff try to do something like this. Um, because I feel like Star Wars is sort of especially like unique in that it is such a large world. You can kind of do really whatever you want with it. And it'll still fit.
Right.
Whereas, something like Halo, uh it's a bit more restricting, right? It's pretty much always a wartime setting. You've got to have uh Spartans and stuff. Like they've got to be fighting something. There's less like opportunity to sort of branch out.
Yeah, I
Um,
mean, there's literally for Halo specifically, like what we were talking about with Star Wars, where it's like, oh, these major events or whatever. It's like for Halo, you're pretty much locked into like a 50-year gap, and within those gaps, it's like you have very little wiggle room because
because
it's
like
like, what do you?
Halo, the original trilogy takes place over a few months in the timeline, right? Like
Right.
it's
Yeah, and
it
then
is a very
before that, it's
massive
like
event.
you you have, with the Spartan projects, you have like, now it's like we're up to 4, but like you have to start at least the first one. And then there, it's like there's not a ton going on. Like if you want to show the Covenant, you're starting with the Spartan 2 project now. You're not even going with the original project. And then from there, it's like, well, then what the hell are you going to show with the Covenant? Like, you can't like, and you're not are you not going to show Reach? Other than Reach, you can't really show another planet because that was like the major one to get fucked. Like,
Yeah,
so I feel like Halo in that sense is even more restrictive.
yeah. It's just that I think a lot of Western IPs um, that are very large are obviously much more restrictive than Star Wars, and it will be much trickier for like these big companies to kind of approach these Japanese studios and say, do whatever you want, you know,
Well,
because
what about new IPs? Do you think they'll be more enthusiastic about new IPs?
um what do you mean? Like a collaboration to create new IPs or
Yeah, but
like
but essentially the money and like the general initial like sketching out of the idea is coming from the Western studio with obviously like input from the Eastern studio, right? But then the bulk of the animation work and where people are getting contracted and stuff like that come from the Eastern studio. Does that make sense? What about those types
um
new
I
IPs
think
started like that?
I do think that's interesting, but the I guess the issue then is that like the the people creating the IP in the West have to like already be set on the premise that like it is going to be like an anime style IP, right?
Right.
And um not to be too pessimistic, but uh that leads to stuff like Ruby. You know what I mean? So
I thought you were gonna say they were gonna try to they
R.I.P.
were a little
dude.
bit afraid
Fucking oh
they
god, that
were gonna
makes
be
me so
afraid
mad. It makes me so
about the risk reward.
fucking
But
mad
yeah,
that that's become a
I
thing
yeah, I
now.
mean there's the logistics side of it too, where
yeah.
we
But
have
you were
there are
just going
studios.
straight for the jugular. You were
Yeah, I
just
mean there
like
are studios now in the West that I believe Castlevania Studio is an American studio if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah,
Um,
powerhouse.
and
hey,
they
what about Millipensi? Millipensi is a Western
mm,
studio.
true yes.
You
I
understood.
was
Come
thinking
on.
of
Yeah, what
studios
about
that
him?
I was thinking of studios that put out good stuff that had been popular and like,
What are you
widely
talking about? You
acclaimed.
popular? Berserk is not. Am I not wrong?
Shut up, dude. But like, there's the logistic side of it, obviously. But like, you know,
Mhm.
I feel like
Yeah.
any writer that's like, yeah, I'm gonna contact Trigger Studios. Like, I feel like at that point the well has kind of already been poisoned in terms of Western writers having that idea. You
Mhm.
know, maybe I'm being bigoted. I don't know, but uh,
Being bigoted towards the white man. How dare you? How fucking dare you?
Well, I
Yeah.
think a more kind way to phrase it is that unless they're being very careful, a lot of them may be working off of again their sort of uh fandom, their bias, their almost fetish towards anime and towards this Orientalism, towards like, wow, we want Japanese style anime instead of kind of more critically looking at it and being
Yeah,
like, can we
basically
make
they're
money off of
fucking
this?
massive racists. That's how we're gonna skin this, and we're gonna
Yeah,
carry that
they're
forward.
they're the
They're
bigots, actually.
extremely racist.
Um,
So you heard it here first. The lead writers of Ruby, huge fucking racist.
Pretty much.
yeah, but
Massive
in
Orientalists.
terms of the general
I mean, look
idea,
at Battle Angel Lita. Look at the
I
eyes in there.
mean,
Come on,
I would,
you're gonna say they're
yeah,
I
not?
would, you know what? As tongue in cheek as that statement originally was, I will say it kind of is true.
That is, it's more true
yeah,
than you
When you
realize.
really think about it,
though I will say, Battle Angel Alita as a movie, eyeballs aside, was
Mhm.
pretty good
It's pretty decent, yeah.
in my opinion. But
I will
yeah,
say Ruby after Monty passed away and the two directors, one of which probably to this day still fucking fillets TTGL as like one of the greatest mecha series ever, even though it's barely a fucking mecha series.
Yeah.
Man, I mean, really, that's all you have to hear, right? Like, yeah, that's racist. Yeah, he's a racist. What else do
yeah,
you need?
true.
One more evidence, you know?
Um,
Really get into it.
but yeah, in terms of like the general idea of like Western writers or I guess just producers or whatever, like going over and contacting Japanese studios and doing sort of a collaborative effort. I think that's a good idea. Largely because you know there's more money in it.
Right.
Um, there's the sort of, I guess, there's the money in sort of the idea that the Western side is going to want a product that is very polished. Is They're going to want something that looks really fucking nice, right? Um,
Mhm.
and like the amount of money that they're willing to pay up is going to be much higher than that of uh like Japanese TV licensors. You know what I mean?
Right. Like
Um,
Sony.
I mean, here specifically, like, as far as I understand, there's no middleman. Like, it is the studios to Disney,
yeah.
and like that's it. So, like, I imagine
Um,
these payouts were like fucking
yeah.
godsends to
I'm
them.
sure there
Like,
was, and I'm sure they had much more power to negotiate prices. Well, so there's that.
Mhm.
So I think that's probably, I mean, it's a good idea. As for whether I think more like Western producers will go for that after this, I don't know. I mean,
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's a
I,
hope. It's not really.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's very up in the air because obviously Star Wars Visions has been very, very widely well received. Um, but I'm sure there's a lot of uh, I'm sure a lot of execs and bigwigs are looking at that and saying, "Oh well, that's just because it's Star Wars," you know,
Right. Right. Yeah.
yeah,
which is partly true. I mean, pretty much anything with the Star Wars name on it is going to like make money. Um, but it's obviously not always going to be very well received,
Right.
as we've seen with the new trilogy, right? Um, but
What are you implying here? What are you implying?
that the new
Are you saying
trilogy
that?
is that the new trilogy is bad and not good and it is shitty. That is what I am implying.
and it and boy does it get worse the more you think about it.
But
And
Yeah,
I
Mark
kind of
Hamill
revel
loved
in
it. Did
that.
you not see his interviews?
he
He
hated it.
Yeah, I
he did
know.
He
not. No,
literally he
he
literally
fucking
told fans not to watch the movie.
yeah. Like, I mean, he
Honestly,
hate
that's like
who
some
liked
bad
it?
energy.
No one who was on those films liked them. Like
Yeah, like
Daisy Ridley didn't like them. Like
yeah.
when you have that, like John Boyega, like we know why he didn't like them, and like
Yeah.
completely fucking valid because the reasons he didn't like them were the major reasons I didn't like them.
Yeah, they completely fucked
Like,
his character.
yeah, like
I'm not gonna lie, the fact that like Star Wars and Game of Thrones and The Matrix might all be like ruined within our generation is kind of sad. Like I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah,
I don't know
mean,
what you mean, bro. I think it's fucking awesome.
yeah, very, very depressing. I mean, I really wish I'd kept in touch with one of my high school teachers because he was a huge Star Wars head. And during we had watched that like original trilogy documentary of like, how shitty it was at the
Yeah.
time for us. And now I'm just like, damn, this is how it felt, huh? I'm like,
Yeah.
but like you motherfuckers couldn't go on like Reddit and fucking get like
Scream
to
its voice.
see
Yeah.
and see that everyone is in agreement. Like this is
Yeah.
awful.
Yeah. But yeah, it's gonna be interesting times up ahead
I
for
think
sure. Just yeah.
as far as the studios go, I think it's definitely going to be a stretch to see if other like producers and stuff want to actively do this. I can, however, I can easily see Disney continue this going forward.
Mhm.
Um, especially, like, cause you have it like somewhat with Netflix trying to like branch out. Um, and I think we'll see Disney do it. I think we'll see maybe other people start to raise eyebrows at it just because of how, the reception of this on top of, even like other smaller like series like animated spin-off or like animated like side like here's like this other thing, like with
Mhm.
What If. I think like they're gonna look at that, and you could probably look at both in conjunction and see like, we can do these slightly smaller projects that have like huge impact in that sense. Like they have real big like sort of like like cultural to say like cultural significance. I don't really know how else to put it, but it's
Right.
like obviously like Visions and like Marvel's like What If, they're not they're not the most significant in their own series, like their own IP.
Right.
But as far as like what it means to people watching and like consuming, it's
Mhm.
huge. Like it's a real big
Absolutely.
deal. So
Absolutely.
I think we're going to see more of that, which I think could definitely lead sort of more people looking at these studios. I mean, shit, we might even see like through Disney and through contacts and through like sort of like just networks in Western media. We might see them be like, people from Disney bump elbows with other people, and then it's just like, oh yeah, we actually didn't pay that much for Visions to get done, like compared to what we would have had to normally
Yeah.
fucking do.
Yeah.
And not only is that true, but then it's like for these
That's
Japanese
important.
studios, they're still
Exactly.
getting paid like significantly more than, and so
And also,
you
if they
might
start
you might s-
comparing, like, yeah, if they start comparing the costs of like Eastern production stuff to Western, it's for, I mean, just as a simple example, like voice actors getting paid in the East is generally like way less than voice actors in getting paid in the West, just because of unions, just because of
yeah
how the general sort of TV culture is. So, like even just in those sorts of simple comparisons, like the price of the contracts could go up because people are just like, we have to account for this. Okay, so pay them, blah blah, right?
yeah. So I think it could be both a boon for the animation for like the Japanese anime industry in like a lot of sense. I think that places are more than willing to pay significant amounts of money. Like, to be honest, I wouldn't even put it past like Disney and Netflix to not even consider like Japanese or like Eastern pricings for this or like payments and just go by like generally what they know. And it's like
Right.
wildly inflated. And, you know, rightfully so, but more along the lines of they'll just be willing to do it because they're like, you have the addition of, like I was saying earlier, like the cultural significance, but then it's also like they're looking at, okay, specifically like for these Japanese anime studios, we know it's more like tried and true that people want this sort of content. And so like we'll pay for that.
Right, exactly.
And especially since, fucking like Vision, like the entirety of Visions probably cost them less than like one fucking episode of Loki to put together. Like,
Mhm.
so, I think I wouldn't be that surprised if we saw more people looking at that,
Mhm.
to do these sort of, smaller scale but larger significance projects.
Right.
And yeah, I'm hoping that happens. I'm hoping what's it called, kind of adds a bit of a boon to just like animated projects with more freedom in general.
Mm.
Hoping we see more of that. I'm hoping we see more from even upcoming like Spider-Verse through Disney. And I hope that sort of like optimally that like Disney kind of sort of like paves the way for that in a sense of where you'll have other like larger companies like saying, well shit, there's a market for this, like we can do. We've seen it somewhat with Netflix. I'm hoping we see more. And yeah, I mean, we got a lot. There's a lot of companies in the ring now. Like there's Netflix, Amazon, Disney, even fucking like Hulu, shit like that. Like they're greenlighting projects. Apple now. So
Mhm.
I think over time we might see that sort of like idea grow of how can
Right.
we hit this niche, especially for companies that already have fulfilled like, like what's our big live action, right? Like Disney hit the live action with the Marvel shit.
Yeah,
Um,
exactly.
I wouldn't be surprised if we might see something from Apple, like Amazon. Amazon hit their live action stuff with a couple of different series, and then they were like, okay, Invincible, as tragic as much as they skimped out on that, perhaps, they'll fucking learn their lesson. Um, but then we see like Apple now. We may see a more major animated like series from Apple now that they've sort of like not really covered their base, but they have now built the massive series that is Ted Lasso. Like
Right.
that is their huge fucking live action series. They see a project like this now. And
Mm.
I hope we do. And I hope that's sort of like what we have in store, because
Right.
it would be very, very fun to see. And it would be definitely a,
Benefit too.
well, yeah, I mean, it would be a benefit to the animation industry, but not even just that. I think more along the lines of like, what would we call that? Like a variable that we didn't really foresee in like our last round table, Like I
Oh,
wasn't even
yeah,
really
yeah, yeah.
thinking of the
About the
idea
West
that
where
like the
people like,
West could just come in and fucking
throw money.
really, yeah, really
Yeah.
start like, essentially fuck everything up in the
Yeah.
best of ways for them
Yeah.
in the
For
industry.
once.
Well, yeah,
For
because
once.
like come in and be like, oh, what? No, we have like millions upon millions upon millions, billions even of fucking dollars to just
Mm.
flood this industry with. Oh,
Yeah,
you
exactly.
normally don't get paid anything like that? Whatever.
Yeah, yeah.
Let's just we'll give you millions anyway. Like,
Right,
fucking make it
exactly. It's
happen.
like you're not used to seeing this much money. Get used to it. It's kind of like
Yeah,
that.
it's like
Yeah.
we'll get used to it because we want this done. So,
Yeah, exactly. But
so
yeah, that's it's gonna be.
I think that could be, yeah, I think that could be a variable, like a spanner in the works in like the best of ways in that sense, where I still think we are in the, I still don't think it would change the trajectory of like,
Mm.
having like at least a crash of some sort. But I think what it could do is it could fast track the process.
Yeah.
It could be like shit like this, and then like these studios might not hit that hardship, but they'll be less willing to take on like bullshit projects or like completely unreasonable projects
Right.
if the
Exactly.
West has like enough to offer them. So
Right.
I
Yeah.
am very much hoping that happens because I think it is the sort of the best possible outcome at this point.
Yeah, just the West normalizing for the Eastern studios what it's like to receive better pay, and then the main anime production committees or companies involved in the production companies kind of have to get used to the fact that they have to compete. They have to compete in the market. So
Yeah. So I
oh,
would definitely hope that happens. I hope we
yeah.
see more of it. I hope our new Demon Slayer fan in office considers that. I hope
Right.
this happens, so he has to consider it.
Mhm.
Imagine a world where Table gets a contract from Disney and is like, "Sorry guys, we have to put Demon Slayer on hold because Disney's giving us $100 million to make a fucking Spider-Man series. I don't know, like fucking to make a fucking Avengers series or like anything really." And
Yeah.
then the sort of cultural panic that would set in to know that,
Wait,
you know,
they're not making anime for like $1 per episode
yeah,
now?
the big bad white man comes in and starts throwing around money, and all of a sudden
Yeah.
now we can't fucking slave drivers anymore. Then,
Yeah.
yeah, I
All
mean it
right.
could backfire,
Yeah.
could be good though.
I mean, there's always gonna be, some sort of flaw or greed that's gonna creep in, but we'll have to see. For right now, at least it's pretty decent. So.
Yeah, I mean the fact that there's no real middleman and it's literally just these studios right like Disney
Mhm.
is already a major step up.
Pretty
Um,
much, yeah.
and
Okay.
also the fact that this is essentially outsourcing
Yeah.
to essentially create a, I would say niche product, but it's like, obviously it's a massive quote unquote niche,
Mhm.
which doesn't particularly need a ton of oversight at that point. So very much like an outsource to get something in return that will eventually come to fruition and will hit a targeted audience. So
Yeah. Okay, so just a quick. By the way, this I always suddenly remind me of this, but I just want to do like a very quick like pseudo lightning round again before we wrap up, just because I was reminded of this. I want to go to each person and as quickly as possible without much explanation. Maybe you can like reaction or something like that, but no real explanation. List. Okay, so let's say in like a year or like within even within the next year Disney says we have this new project like anime. We're gonna make like anime whatever, right? Like not even Star Wars, just like anime stuff in our franchise in general. In with Japan, we're gonna be collaborating with Japanese anime studios, new IPs, blah blah. And they select three in addition to like the studios that they've already worked with. They announce three new studios that they're going to work with. So, in that timeline, what would those three entirely new studios be? Near, starting with you. Three studios
Huh.
from the existing like lineup. Obviously, they have to be
three.
different from the
That's a
ones
lot.
that are in Visions.
That's huge.
Excluding the ones that have already.
Yes.
Okay.
Quick. Lightning round. You don't have to
Uh,
really explain. You can just kind of go through it.
I mean Bones, right?
Okay.
Like I don't really explain
Oh
that.
yeah, shit, I got the
Yeah.
three now.
No,
There you go.
you don't have to explain any of them. Yeah. You
Yeah.
can just go through it. Bones.
I'd say Bones. Uh, shit. Fucking. I mean
What do you
Mappa,
want to say?
right? Like
Oh,
Mappa.
Mappa. Yeah. I was
Yeah,
I was
yeah.
thinking that you do that. Yep.
And just for comedy, Dean.
Dean.
Yeah, all right.
Okay. All right, Dark.
Bones, Mappa, Orange.
Ah, orange. Yes, I can see that. All right. My guess would be. Remember, this is what Disney has eyes on, so I would say probably something like Sunrise.
Mhm.
Fuck. Ufotable.
I mean, yeah. I
And
mean, that's definitely the big one that they would probably try
yeah,
to poach.
and either a split between Tezuka animations or Toei animations, one of the two, probably.
Mm,
But probably something like Toei anime. Oh no,
yeah,
I think Tezuka and Toei.
I'd
Yeah,
say
Toei.
probably Toei.
Yeah,
I don't think they
yeah.
have their eyes on JC staff.
JC, dude, if they go with
No.
something like, if they ever do something like JC Staff, A1, and Shaft, the Western
Oh my
anime community will
god.
explode. Like, it'll just like, implode upon itself.
Yeah. Walt's gonna
Uh,
fucking claw his way out of his grave and then fall asleep.
Mickey's gonna be working with Toma too. Mickey.
Christ almighty. Yeah, fucking Dakota erased from existence. Fucking Mickey Mouse fucking merch now.
Imagine
What a
Breaker
hellish.
figures. Yeah.
Oh yeah, like
Imagine Breaker
Dakota's phone
dolls.
now is instead of being like the Dakota Frog phone, now it's fucking Mickey Mouse phone.
Yeah, exactly.
What
It's the
a
mouse.
hellish future you've managed. Make me imagine. My
Oh
own
my
comment.
god. All right. And with that, we are finally at the end. We took, it's still quite a while, but uh, we had a lot of fun doing this, and I hope you guys had a lot of fun listening in to our sort of romp through the Star Wars Vision universe and just about, Star Wars in Japan in general. Yeah. Any last words or just some last words from you guys near? Let's start off with you. What's more?
I want to know what
Mm.
was your guys' favorite episode?
Definitely, I like 9. I was. The thing is, I think 8 was the most well made, but I'm just
Yeah,
too partial to 9. It's so
yeah,
bad.
I agree. I think La Pinocho is like probably like if I do approach it from an objective standpoint, La
Yeah,
Pinocho is like the best episode.
yeah,
Um, but Akakiri is so like I love it. It's like I
yeah,
love everything about it. The
yeah,
style, like the music, like the
mhm,
way, like especially like the two old dudes, like they were awesome, right?
yeah.
And just like the ending, it's so good. What was yours,
Uh,
Dark?
Um, honestly, it's probably a toss-up between 6 and 8. I really liked the Obi-Wan.
Yeah.
I think
mhm,
that one was really, really fun. I think it looked really nice. But I think La Pinocho, the reason why I would probably put it at my like top just in general would be like we were saying with like just overall satisfaction in like the one episode, but also wanting more anyway.
mhm,
Like I feel like with a lot of them, like Akakiri, I liked a lot, but I was like, when it was done, I was like, yeah, that's it. That's fine by me. Like,
Yeah.
awesome. I am
right.
done with it. I'm good with it, and I really like it. Um, but as far as like, what I really want, like, what I crave more of, like La Pinocho, like, fuck, like it was good. I was satisfied with that episode and the story, but goddamn, like, would I be overjoyed if they were like, here's a full fucking like 12 episodes?
Mhm,
So yeah, I would say that's probably my favorite. With
right.
yeah, probably Akakiri as second. Um, TOB1, I don't know if I would put it like my second, but I did like it. I liked it a
Mhm,
lot. Um, but also, kind of a sucker for like fucking Astro Boy slash classic Mega Man fucking
Yeah,
nonsense.
yeah,
So
yeah.
throw that in any story and I'll fucking like it.
But
Okay.
yeah. As for last words, I mean, I liked it.
Mm.
I thought pretty much all of the episodes were really, really good. Again, I think my least favorites were probably Tatooine Rhapsody. It just didn't really grab me. Um, and then I just like I can't get over the amount of lore breaking that was in the Ninth Jedi. Like it's just unreal. Like it's set in a timeline that like makes no sense at all. The lightsaber shit makes no sense at all. Like the dude that's like, oh, these guys were just so evil that became evil too. It's like, shut up, man. Like,
Bro. You're
uh, you
you're
know,
you 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 you're represented by the company you keep, and sometimes you just become a
Also,
Sith.
again, also as I had pointed out before I even saw the episode and Nira had told me about it, how did they start red lightsabers and that guy's turned purple?
I don't
Wouldn't
know, man.
everyone's lightsaber turn purple regardless then at some point in time? When you think about think about it.
I mean, I
What would
guess
be the starting lightsaber color
if
then?
you were
Like
ever tempted by the dark side, I suppose
it
your
would just be
lightsaber would
purple.
just be purple. So at that
Because
point, like,
but then it's like so then how do the Sith have full red? Like is it because they're full evil? Like
yeah,
that
they're just born evil, dude.
but then it's like wouldn't the guy with the purple lightsaber, wouldn't his saber just be blue? And
I don't
then
know, man.
how does a green saber factor into all this?
It's just so dumb.
Neither of
And I
those
mean,
colors mix to make green.
if it was like just if it was just the lightsabers, right? If it was just the lightsabers, I'd be like, okay, that's really dumb, but sure. Like, it was a really well animated episode, and the premise wasn't terrible, but like the fact that they opened the episode with like this huge, like, well, not really huge. I mean, it's still it's like 10-minute episode, but like this big plot dump, right? Like this exposition dump where, you know, like the Jedi Order is like decimated, right? Like there's no Jedi left. Um, but like it's in a time period where there's like there's like a Sith Order to where like they are literally like covering the entire galaxy, right? So it's like,
Hmm.
when is this supposed to take place, right? Because like there's no way it's like the Old Republic because the Jedi were flourishing in the Old Republic, right? Like there was only like a small like couple year period in the Old Republic where the Jedi Order was like completely decimated. And at that
Right.
point, there was no Sith Order that was like spanning the entire galaxy. So it's like this. There's no point in time in like the Star Wars timeline where this makes sense. At least not that I'm aware of.
Mm.
And then they're like, yeah, like the Jedi Order is completely wiped out. By the way, there's this lightsaber smith on this planet. Like what?
Also,
How is he?
yeah,
How
like
is he not a Jedi? Like what?
yeah, and where is he getting kyber crystals from? And
Yeah, and he's
also,
he's just like magically pulling kyber crystals from asteroids. Like that doesn't make sense at all.
yeah, like it's supposed to be much more of a spiritual journey to get it, but sure. Like I guess if you're just gonna fucking put some metal to the hammers to the
Yeah,
metal, why not?
I don't know. It was just too much for me as a Star Wars fan. But
Also, again,
overall,
yeah, like the the Jedi Order is in like dismay. Also, here's a guy with a green lightsaber. Like,
yeah.
what?
But
Like, when
yeah.
when did he come around then?
Outside
Right.
of that, just like that's mostly just me being like really like just hyper fixated on this one really dumb detail. But like I just can't look over it. But overall, I think this series is very, very good.
Right.
It's definitely a real treat for Star Wars fans, especially Star Wars fans that just so happen to be anime fans. Um, you know, it's good. You know, it's very well put together. Obviously, the talent behind it. Uh, they know what they're doing, very, very clearly. Um, and it's really good. Uh,
Right.
yeah, I liked it a lot.
Okay. All right. And on that note, yes. Oh, actually, Dark. Do you have any last words, or did you want to add on to anything?
No, I mean, I think I pretty much said all that I want. Well, actually, yeah, I guess as like a final wrap up, just yeah, I think it was great. Um, and I'd like to see more from Yuki Igarashi. That would be
Mhm.
that
Yeah,
would be
yeah.
cool.
I second
It
that.
was it was apparently his directorial debut. Pretty surprising.
Really,
Jesus
So
Christ. Yeah.
definitely
Again. uh,
tight. So, um, yeah, hope to see more. Really like to see just like more in this vein at the very least, if not, you know, more Star Wars visions. I think that would be
Right.
cool. I think another set of them would be sick. With maybe if Studio and Rashi want to do like another episode essentially, that would be fine. I think getting more studios in on it would be really sick. I think it's a really cool formula that you could
Mhm.
do a lot with. Yeah, hope to see more.
Yeah, good stuff. And with that, excuse me, with that, we are finally done with our Star Wars Visions reviews. I really wish that we could have had Toast on again, but again, hopefully he can kind of finish up whatever he's dealing with soon. And thanks to my compatriots, my friends in arms here, my allies, near and dark, for helping cover this with me, and to all the listeners and viewers out there watching and listening to this. Thank you for listening. Posting this shortly, and next week will be the start of our fall 2021 reviews. So check us out on there. We should pretty much all be one episode, two episodes, even three episodes into the new season. So I'm pretty sure we should have enough series to go around to pick. So that should be fine this time around. And if you like what we do, we stream our podcast recordings every other Saturday, starting from 10 p.m. Eastern Standard Time over at twitch.tv/4PlayAnimecast. That's with the numeral 4, where we talk about the latest and greatest in Japanese animation and anime related stuff, anime, manga, light novels, web novels, visual novels, and so much more. So we have our recording here, have it saved on our highlights on Twitch as well as on YouTube. So you can check it out whichever format you want. Social media updates on information and more news on Facebook, 4PlayAnimecast, and Twitter. Our handle is at 4PPAnimecast, again, all with the numeral 4. And yeah, till next time.